Japan hides stories that never reached closure. Lives erased in silence. Paths that ended without footprints. A car left humming by the roadside. A schoolgirl swallowed by the crowd. A mountain trail where tents waited but their owners never returned. These are disappearances that turned routine into enduring nightmares. In Japan's quiet landscapes, people vanish as if the land itself consumes them. No warnings, no goodbyes, only sudden absence. Families find belongings untouched, meals half-eaten in cars, running with doors wide open. What's terrifying is not just the loss, it's the silence afterward, as if reality itself closed its mouth. These disappearances are not distant folklore. Police files remain open, yet decades later, no answers come. Witnesses recall fragments of figure in a mask, a shadow at a crossroad, laughter on an empty trail. Memories blur, but the fear never does. What remains is an emptiness that refuses explanation. Japan is filled with places where absence lingers, roads where headlights illuminate nobody, classrooms with empty chairs forever waiting, mountain paths that echo with steps never completed. The haunting lies not in what was seen, but in what was suddenly gone. Loss transforms into legend, and legends harden into fear. To disappear without trace is to leave behind unfinished sentences. Parents wake daily to silence where voices should be. Friends replay last conversations, searching for hidden meaning. Police walk the same routes, finding only dead ends. The most chilling part is not death, it's being erased without farewell or reason. Tonight, you'll hear 3 disturbing disappearance cases from Japan. Stories where routine life simply stopped, leaving only chilling fragments behind. If fear follows you after this, remember vanishing doesn't always mean leaving. Sometimes, it means being taken. Subscribe to Echoes of the East, and tell us where you're watching from, if you dare. In the 1980s, Hachioji seemed safe. A quiet district west of Tokyo. Among its residents was a respected schoolteacher, known for her discipline and kindness. Her life followed a strict routine, walking or driving the same route each day, without fail. That order shattered when she vanished without trace. What should have been a normal morning collapsed into nightmare, leaving only fragments. Her absence turned ordinary life into something terrifying, as though reality itself had been rewritten. On the day she disappeared, everything seemed ordinary. She left home early, carrying her handbag neatly packed with lessons. The sky was clear, streets calm, nothing hinted at tragedy. Hours later, colleagues realized she never arrived at school. Parents phoned anxiously, hoping for delay. By midnight, fear overshadowed reason. Her room stood empty, calls unanswered. Police were alerted. What began as a minor worry soon twisted into a mystery that swallowed certainty whole. That evening, a patrol located her car on a rural Hachioji road. The engine was still running, headlights cutting into the encroaching dark. The driver's door stood ajar, swaying gently in the breeze. Her handbag rested on the seat, untouched. Books, personal items, everything remained inside. There was no blood, no struggle, no footprints nearby. It seemed as though she had stepped out mid-journey and dissolved into the air, leaving only the machine faithfully humming without reason. Investigators scoured the area, photographing tire marks and carefully noting the unsettling stillness. No signs of violence were present, no shattered glass, no torn earth, no evidence of a body dragged away. Only the sound of the running engine filled the silence. The scene felt wrong, as though existence itself had fractured. Neighbors recalled nothing unusual that morning. There were no screams, no sudden noises. A woman had simply been erased in broad daylight without warning. Friends and neighbors said she was reliable and devoted, never careless. She did not drink, never missed work, and cared deeply for her students. Voluntary disappearance seemed impossible. Why leave her car, handbag, and door ajar? Detectives retraced her route, questioning shopkeepers, drivers, pedestrians. None recalled her after leaving home. The road where her car was found became a wound, an unanswered question staring back at investigators without ever giving explanation. Her family endured agonizing days, clinging to faint hope. They believed she would be found within hours. Posters soon appeared on utility poles, shops, and train stations. Her face became a haunting image, staring back from walls. Students wrote letters addressed to her, convinced she might somehow read them wherever she was. But days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The only solid witness was the car, silent, mechanical, and incapable of telling what it had seen. Theories arose, but none solved her disappearance. Abduction seemed unlikely. Why take her in daylight, leaving car and belongings untouched? Suicide was mentioned, yet there was no note, no despair to support it. Rumors of debt or hidden affairs spread, but family and colleagues swore she was stable and responsible. Police grew divided, circling contradictions endlessly. The case froze. Absence replaced evidence. Silence weighed more than reason. Emptiness louder than logic itself. Soon the road itself became legend. Locals whispered it was cursed, a place where the living simply vanish. Taxi drivers claimed to see figures waving for rides, only to find empty roadside shadows when they stopped. One insisted a woman entered his car, but vanished when he glanced back. Commuters described headlights trailing them, disappearing when checked. The teacher's disappearance gave this stretch of asphalt a hunger, as though the road itself consumed those who passed. Fear bled into nearby families. Parents warned children not to walk alone. Residents locked doors earlier, wary of shadows beyond glass. Police patrolled more often, but their presence felt hollow without progress. Teachers avoided her name, afraid of stirring grief. At school, her desk remained untouched for weeks before removal. Silence became heavier than mourning. Her absence was not simply remembered, it haunted, a lingering presence that felt alive, waiting patiently to happen once again. Years passed, yet the mystery endured. The road changed little, still lined with the same trees, carrying the same suffocating stillness. Travelers reported strange sensations, footsteps behind them, soft whispers in the breeze, sudden cold spreading across their skin. Some claimed to glimpse a woman by the roadside, vanishing when headlights caught her. The story became inseparable from the land, a scar that could not heal. Her disappearance was no longer only tragedy, became ritualized fear. Her family never surrendered hope. Each year on the anniversary, they placed flowers near where the car was found. Time aged them, but their grief never dulled. In interviews, relatives trembled, recalling her laugh, her devotion, her humanity. She was taken from us, her brother whispered. By what? I don't know. But not by choice. Hope became their torment. Absence is crueler than death, because death ends the wait. Absence leaves families chained to endless possibility forever. Eventually, police closed the investigation as unsolved. The car was returned to her family, though nobody wished to touch it. It remained locked in storage, a haunting object, too painful to approach. Those who entered said the air felt heavy inside, silence unbearable, as though it had absorbed her last breath. The car became more than evidence, it became a shrine of dread, the only witness to the impossible, carrying questions too dark for answers. Over time, myth merged with fact. Locals claimed she was taken by the woman in white, a roadside ghost luring drivers into disappearance. Others believed mountain spirits claimed her for trespassing. Stories multiplied, not to explain but to survive the silence. Humans cannot endure emptiness. They fill voids with legends, echoes, and half-believed warnings. The truth refused to appear, so the community built one instead. Yet whispers carried unease. The myth was less frightening than reality. No trace has ever been found. Her name is spoken softly in Hachioji, as though calling it might summon her shadow. The road remains unchanged, haunted by headlights and memories. What end she met, is unknowable. What lingers is worse, the terror that someone can be erased mid-life, mid-step, mid-breath vanished, so cleanly it feels deliberate. Her story endures not through answers, but through silence, the kind that gnaws at memory, reminding all safety is fragile. Nagoya, in the mid-1980s, pulsed with students, trains, and neon lights. Among them was Junko Fujioka, a promising young woman with a bright future. Her days followed a rhythm of classes, friends, and laughter. One night fractured that routine forever. She vanished into the city's veins, leaving only whispers. What began as an ordinary evening dissolved into chilling mystery. In crowded streets, her sudden absence created silence louder than all the surrounding noise. Junko was last seen leaving school, carrying books and notes, heading toward the station. Witnesses described her smiling, waving goodbye, untroubled. Hours later, she failed to return home. Family assumed she was delayed, perhaps with friends. But by midnight, fear eclipsed reason. Calls went unanswered, her bedroom empty. Police were alerted. A search began that night. In a city where trains never stop running, Junko had vanished between one station and the next, without explanation. The first trace came from a classmate who claimed to see her near a shopping arcade. She appeared nervous, glancing behind her. The witness described a tall man in a white mask following a short distance away. At first, it seemed like coincidence. Yet other accounts soon emerged. Several people reported seeing a girl matching Junko's description, walking quickly, eyes wide, pursued by a silent figure. None of them saw her again after that moment. Police searched arcades, alleys, and train platforms, distributing flyers bearing Junko's smile. No belongings were found, no torn clothing, no signs of a struggle. Surveillance footage from that era was sparse, leaving only memory as evidence. The masked man became the focal point. Who was he? Why was he following? No identity was ever discovered. Theories swirled. A stalker, an obsessed admirer, a stranger, drawn by chance. With every day that passed, the trail grew colder. Her family refused to believe she simply ran away. Junko's notes, diary, and personal belongings revealed no secrets. Friends described her as cheerful, responsible, dedicated to her studies. Rumors spread of a secret relationship, but no proof appeared. Instead, all evidence pointed toward someone taking her against her will. Yet with no body, no ransom, and no contact, police remained paralyzed. The absence of evidence became more terrifying than evidence itself. It implied perfect erasure. The city responded with unease. Parents warned daughters not to walk alone at night. Strangers seemed more suspicious, alleys darker. The masked man became a local myth, whispered about like an urban legend. Some said he appeared suddenly in crowded stations. Others claimed he vanished into alleyways impossible to track. Every disappearance rumor became tied to him, whether real or imagined. His shadow stretched across Nagoya, feeding fear until Junko's name felt like a curse. Weeks became months. Flyers yellowed. Junko's smile faded under rain and wind. Investigators chased lead after lead, everyone dissolved. Tips, flooded lines, sightings, alley screams, none true. Her family clung to hope, refusing funerals, refusing closure. She is somewhere, her mother whispered, eyes hollow. With the years, somewhere turned cruel. Each unanswered day deepened the wound, making her absence feel heavier and more merciless than death. Theories multiplied endlessly. Some suspected human trafficking, others whispered of cults using victims for rituals. Another belief claimed she was killed that night, her body buried where no one would find it. None of these explanations carried proof. Silence demanded stories, and communities invented them when truth hid. For many, Junko became the model of a cursed disappearance, an ordinary student swallowed by a city too vast, leaving behind no evidence, only speculation and fear. Years later, her case fused with Nagoya's urban legends. People claimed a girl like Junko stood on late-night platforms, clutching books for trains that never came. Some approached. In a blink, the platform was empty. Others heard footsteps through arcades, soft breathing in vacant corridors. Hallucination or haunting. Her stories seeped into the city's architecture, leaving faint traces everywhere. Her disappearance also birthed darker tales. Some said the masked man was no human, but an ominous echo that appears before Vanachin's taxi drivers told of picking up masked passengers who disappeared mid-ride. Others claimed dreams of white masks that lingered after waking. Each retelling gave Nagoya a deeper unease. Whether myth or memory, the image of Junko and the man following her fused together. They became inseparable in the city's imagination, a warning embodied. Her family continued searching decades later, appearing on television programs, begging for answers. Police occasionally reopened the case, spurred by new anonymous tips, but always reached dead ends. One retired officer admitted, "It felt like chasing a ghost. She walked into the city and was consumed. We couldn't even prove she had left." His words haunted the family. To lose someone is tragic. To lose them without evidence is worse. It denies even grief's closure. As time passed, Junko's name became both tragedy and warning. Students whispered her story during late walks, daring each other to glance behind, imagining a masked man following. Some avoided certain alleys entirely, convinced her spirit lingered. Parents continued telling daughters to travel in groups. Fear lingered in everyday life, woven into routine. What made the case unbearable wasn't only that she disappeared, but that she disappeared in the middle of normalcy, without explanation. Today, Junko Fujioka remains missing. No remains, no final message, no verified sighting. Just an open wound in Nagoya's history. Her case lives in shadows, where truth and legend blur. Perhaps she was taken by human cruelty, perhaps by something far darker. What end she met remains unknowable. What endures is the image of a girl smiling one moment, then gone the next. In crowded streets, her absence still hangs, a silence louder than voices. The case reminds us that disappearance is a horror deeper than death. Death has rituals, mourning, finality. Disappearance denies all three, leaving a void too vast for reason. Nagoya never forgot Junko, but memory offers no answers. What remains is the terror that one day, a single step could erase us completely. Just as Junko did, into air that refuses to return what it has taken, leaving families forever imprisoned in uncertainty and silence. The forests of Okutama and Nikko stretch endlessly west of Tokyo, green seas of cedar and mist. Hikers, students, and tourists wander their trails every year. Yet beneath the beauty lies darker truth. People vanish here. Paths end suddenly. Belongings remain untouched, but bodies never return. Legends whisper of spirits and warnings to travelers. In these forests, silence feels alive, and what disappears leaves no echo, only unanswered absence that clings like a shadow. One famous case involved a group of young hikers. They set up camp near a popular trail, leaving tents and backpacks neatly arranged. When rescuers arrived days later, after families reported them missing, the site remained untouched, food still packed, lanterns still unlit, yet the hikers were gone. No footprints, no signs of struggle, only empty tents swaying with the wind. The mountain had consumed them without trace, leaving possessions as mocking reminders of unfinished journeys. Rescuers combed ridges, rivers, and caves with dogs and helicopters. Nothing surfaced. The terrain was harsh, yet experienced hikers should have left clues. Broken branches, scraps of clothing, trails in mud. Investigators found none. It was as if the group had walked beyond the boundaries of the map, swallowed whole by the forest. Families wept at the sight of the abandoned camp, realizing their children had stepped into a silence so complete it refused return. Locals whisper old tales. Okutama, they say, shelters mountain spirits that punish arrogance. White-clad figures lure travelers from paths. In Nikko, temples warn of guardians claiming the disrespectful. These stories return whenever hikers vanish. Officials cite accidents, yet the emptiness of evidence deepens fear. For many, belief in spirits feels easier than accepting people can simply disappear so perfectly, leaving no trace, no reason, nothing. Another disappearance chilled authorities. A man drove into Okutama for a weekend hike. His car was found parked neatly near a trailhead, keys inside, door locked. Days later, searchers found his jacket folded on a rock, but nothing else. No body, no signs of wildlife attack, no explanation. It seemed deliberate, as though he undressed to vanish. The image of clothes left behind, without flesh, unsettled rescuers. The mountain offered back fabric, but not the man. Patterns emerged. Belongings were found, people were not. Tents, cars, jackets, even shoes lay abandoned. Rescuers called them empty markers, breadcrumbs leading nowhere. Some officers admitted they felt watched branches cracked without cause. Shapes faded when approached. Such reports never reached official logs, yet the whispers spread. The forest did not feel empty. Something unseen lingered between the trees, patient, choosing who returned and who was quietly kept. Families gathered each year at the sites, lighting candles and leaving offerings. Photos of the missing stood by shrines. Paper notes trembled in the wind. Parents begged for answers, at least a body. Mountains returned nothing. Priests performed purification rites to soothe spirits, yet the woods hid their truths. For those left behind, silence grew unbearable. Grief without remains was torture without end, a pain carved into every returning season. Authorities clung to rational causes. Weather shifts, sudden fog, treacherous slopes. Locals scoffed accidents leave traces. These vanishings do not. With no proof, police marked files unresolved. Journalists flooded Okutama and Nikko, blending fact and legend. Readers devoured tales of cursed trails and phantom lights. The mountains turned infamous, drawing night campers who dared the spirits. Some returned shaken, others heard their names called from the dark. Strangest testimonies came from survivors. They spoke of time-bending hours vanishing, days compressed into moments. Others felt dizziness, waking far from the last place remembered. One woman followed her brother into fog. When it cleared, she stood alone. He was never found. Such accounts blurred reality, suggesting the mountain's warped perception itself. If true, Okutama and Nikko consumed more than bodies. They swallowed time and the anchors of memory. Legends fused with modern fears. Certain trails earned a new name: doors, places where reality thinned. Those who entered risked never returning. People described lights hovering between trees, whispers rising like wind, and chills in summer heat. Guides avoided those paths, quietly marking them on private maps. Officials confirmed nothing, yet the stories endured. What once seemed picturesque gained a sinister reputation for hunger, swallowing wanderers without explanation. Rescue teams confessed quiet terror. Some refused Okutama after strange encounters. One man heard dozens of footsteps behind him, though his unit was scattered. Another swore someone called his name, but the woods were empty. Compasses spun and radios hissed with static. In whispers, rescuers admitted, it felt as if something wanted them lost too. The mountains no longer seemed terrain. They felt watchful, patient, consuming. Disappearances drew global attention. Documentaries probed Okutama and Nikko, stitching fact to legend. Audiences obsessed over theories, kidnappings, cults, supernatural forces. High-profile searches ended empty. Foreign hikers vanished as well, proving the mystery was not local. Governments urged caution. Fascination deepened. The forests turned infamous as places where reality falters. Each vanishing left grief and allure. People kept returning, feeding a cycle of fear and loss. Today, Okutama and Nikko remain paradoxes, beauty shadowed by tragedy. Tourists photograph shrines, waterfalls, and peaks while families still wait. Their faces stare from fading posters at stations, quiet reminders of the disappeared. Mountains welcome hikers, warmly until they do not. For those who never return, the forests neither forgive nor explain. They keep what they take, sealing secrets in silence heavier than stone. The greatest terror of Okutama and Nikko lies not in spirits or curses, but in uncertainty. Absence corrodes hope. It leaves families trapped between prayers and despair. Death ends stories, but disappearance leaves them unfinished. In these forests, trails can simply end, not with cliffs or rivers, but with nothing. That void is darker than any myth. It is the silence of mountains that choose to keep secrets forever, swallowing lives without leaving even echoes. Disappearances are wounds that never close. Death allows mourning, but vanishing erases certainty, leaving families chained to endless questions. In Japan's cities, roads, and forests, lives simply stopped, possessions left behind, like echoes of interrupted stories. The silence left by those who vanish is heavier than grief. It gnaws at memory, reminding us the world is not always safe, nor fair. What terrifies most is not absence itself, but the possibility it can happen anywhere. These cases blur the line between reality and legend. Police reports turn into campfire tales, myths rising from unanswered files. A teacher's car, a student's smile, and abandoned ordinary objects twisted into sinister relics. Disappearance spreads like infection across time. Communities whisper names, repeat warnings. In Japan, vanishing does not simply erase. It lingers, staining streets, classrooms, and mountains with silence that feels merciless, deliberate, and impossible to escape. The forests of Nikko, the streets of Nagoya, the roads of Hachioji, these places hold shadows beyond explanation. They remind us that disappearance is not always about distance, but about being consumed by something unseen. Legends attempt to soften the void, yet nothing restores what was stolen. The terror of these stories is simple. Lives once vibrant now exist only in memory, cut off without warning, and in the silence left behind, fear continues to grow.